Hi guys, let's talk about Ib. Ib has always been a fascinating game to me. The concept of a game with paintings being the main focus is interesting. It's no Super Mario 64, but this game was made with a lot of artistic influences in mind. If you don't know what Ib is, let's delve into the history. Ib is a puzzle horror adventure game similar to Aoni, except it's made within the RPG Maker 2000 engine by Kouri. The game was released in 2012, with updates being posted throughout the years since its release. The premise of the game is that you play as a 9-year-old girl named Ib, who gets lost in an art gallery for an artist named Giratina after everyone goes missing. Ib is now trapped inside a hellscape version of the gallery that houses multiple areas of different color, paintings that want to attack her, and sculptures that chase after her. Inside the other gallery, Ib's health is determined by petals on a rose. In the game, she has 5 petals before she dies. Each character in the game has a differently colored rose. Ib carries a red rose to complement her already red design. Going along on her journey, Ib runs into a few friends. Meet Gary, an adult man who has a wacky hairstyle and a stylistic fashion sense. He carries a blue rose to go along with the color of his hair. He also speaks in a pretty feminine way, according to the Japanese version. Yeah, that's a bit of a weird topic to talk about. I never really noticed that he spoke femininely in the English version, but in Japanese it's a lot more obvious that he speaks this way, and there's a reason why. See, in Japanese you're able to express your gender by the way you talk, similarly to how in European languages words have both a masculine and feminine form. Depending on what form you use, you may come off as masculine or feminine yourself. In Japanese, women tend to use sentence enders like kashira, and because Japanese has many different ways to say me or I to identify oneself, women tend to use watashi or atashi. Both use the same character for representation, but if you say atashi, people may be more inclined to believe that you are female. Anyways, Japanese rant over. Gary is a very kind person who helps Ib read words that she can't read due to being so young. He also helps out with heavy objects that Ib can't push. It's unknown how old Gary actually is, but I would suspect somewhere around early to mid-20s, just based on his appearance and how he interacts with Ib. Another person that you meet is named Mary, a girl with blonde hair, a green dress, and big blue eyes to contrast with Ib's big red eyes. She carries a yellow rose, for obvious reasons, but she seems a bit careless. Midway through your journey, you come to realize that Gary and Mary contrast in an interesting way. While Gary acts carefully and maturedly about the situation, Mary is quite the opposite. She is very childlike and irresponsible. This also plays into the theme that Ib displays. People have talked about this before, but for context, the three enter a room filled with what looks like glass statues of rabbits. All three react differently to the room, with Gary saying that nothing about the room is cute, while Mary disagrees and Ib is able to agree or disagree with either of them. The gang is forcibly separated and both Ib and Mary are off on their own. Gary re-enters the room to find that he was actually looking at something much more terrifying than what we saw before. This is pretty accurate to how a child interprets something versus an adult. This is the theme that I was talking about before, the theme of maturity. One may find something cute while another may find the same thing creepy and unsettling. This also goes with how Mary and Gary act. One acts very irresponsibly and the other acts the opposite. Ib as a character is kind of like a middle ground in that relationship. She can be mature or not, depending on what the player decides. While the groups are split up, we get to see that both Ib and Gary have different petal counts. Ib has 5, but Gary has 10. And that's because there's a section where you have to cross some dangerously toxic gas to complete your objectives, so having 10 makes sense for this. Anyway, spoiler territory coming up by the way, so if you want to play the game for yourself, I'd recommend stopping the video now and find a way to play it. You have been warned. With puzzles being solved, Mary starts getting a little weird. She keeps mumbling things to herself and laughing maniacally. What could be causing this? To answer that, Gary's side of the equation houses something far dire than anyone could have forethought. Gary flips through a book containing a few of Giratina's works, and what he finds is... Mary! She's one of Giratina's paintings! She's not real! This is bad! How is Gary going to know that Ib is okay? Before long, he finds that out just in time before Mary is about to hurt Ib. Mary is pushed to the ground and both Ib and Gary have regrouped. They stumble into the sketchbook, an area that has everything illustrated in big crayons. Here, we see that a lot of Giratina's works were thrown in here as rejects, works that could never be placed in an art gallery for those to see. One of them just so happens to be... Mary. Both Ib and Gary come across Mary's painting, and in a hurry, both burn down the painting to destroy Mary. Gary's hand has been injured from the picture frame's glass breaking. Ebe hands Gary a handkerchief to heal his wound, and the two manage to escape the sketchbook. Now that they are in an inverted version of the former gallery, Ebe and Gary jump into the big painting from the beginning of the game. Except... Wait, it's Ebe's mother! But is it really? Could it be a painting replica of her mother? Before Ebe knows for sure, she goes into the painting with Gary. And she's back to where she was before everything happened. She finds Gary in the gallery, and thanks to the handkerchief given to him, both Ebe and Gary remember their journey, and promise to reunite once again in the future. So that's what Ebe was initially. A game with a great story, fantastic characters, amazing art direction, and a very fun game to play overall. Later in 2014, Ebe was updated to add some new areas that could only be unlocked if you played the game once before and play it again, in the form of New Game Plus. In these areas, there are more paintings and puzzles to solve. Usually people would look at this and go, is there a point? But if you get past all these areas, you obtain a key that lets you gain access to Gertena's True Exhibit. In the True Exhibit, you're able to see how many paintings you've looked at and how many endings you've obtained. I forgot to mention that Ebe is a game with a lot of endings, each giving players a share of what outcomes could happen based on their choices. Unlike in Aoni version 5, where both endings are virtually the same just with slightly different cutscenes, Ebe takes it to the max by making sure that you know that you're heading towards a specific ending. When you make certain choices, those choices are remembered and alter the experience greatly rather than slightly. You may notice these changes if you've gotten one ending but are aiming for another. To get the ending that I talked about, Promise of Reunion, you need to make sure to talk to Gary quite a bit in certain areas. This will raise Gary's friendship meter. The game has invisible meters that determine which ending you're going for, which is why the choices that you make in this game matter a lot. You also need to make sure he doesn't break anything. This will add to his doom meter, which will cause negative outcomes. Whenever Gary asks if you're there, you must answer with something rather than nothing. Otherwise, Gary will be worried, and this may also add to the doom meter. You may also need to do certain things that you wouldn't normally do in a regular playthrough. For example, this maze with the statues in the purple area. If you go into it, you must read what's in the bookshelf. I know. It's not the most ideal thing to make an ending condition, but this does add to obtaining the reunion ending. I won't say everything you'd have to do to get the ending, but those are some of the tips that I lived by over the years while playing this game. Other endings can also be achieved by doing similar stuff with Mary, but I won't delve into those. It's more fun when you see the outcomes that ensue. So that's the entirety of Ebe. Except it's not. Recently in 2022, Ebe was announced to be receiving a Steam remake by the same developer, Kouri. After the announcement, the game was released! In Japanese only. However, there was talk of an English version coming out, and lo and behold, the English version was added in as part of an update. This update adds an achievement for completing the True Exhibit in its entirety. Since there's quite a few differences with the remake, I won't be going into too many details, but I will try to cover what I can. So let's talk about it. Ebe, the remake version, was made in RPG Maker MV and has a lot improved and modified from the original game. Kouri had stated multiple times that the goal of Ebe was to make it accessible to people who hadn't played a video game before. As such, a lot of the TDMs that the original game faced were fizzled out and reworked into making the game less difficult to play at times. Some areas that may be recognizable to people already experienced with Ebe appear differently to before, with puzzles being added in where there were none before. For example, this maze in the gray area has been made into a puzzle involving pushing colored teacups to match the same color teapots. The puzzle itself is comprehensible at first glance and easy to get behind after a few tries. It's not an overly complicated puzzle, but it can be tough when thinking a lot about it. The True Exhibit has also been reworked so that you don't have to use the same save file to save your progress on endings and paintings. So now it's easier to collect paintings and obtain endings and see the outcomes. This is also thanks to being able to load a file no matter where you are. The save files themselves also include a counter for how many paintings you encountered on your journey. So now it's more than worth it to collect paintings and endings, even if it's just for an achievement. A new feature has also been added. The Talk to Buddy feature, as I call it, allows you to get hints of what to do in a certain area from whichever person is accompanying you at any given time. This also serves as a neat way to get to know the person you're with better. A big bump that I have with this feature is that it's required to be used in order to obtain certain endings, including the Promise of Reunion ending. To get the ending this time, you virtually do the same things that you would in the original, except you must use the Talk to Gary feature in order to raise his friendship meter, and also get a diamond in the sketchbook, which is easily skippable if you walk on a different path. That's the problem I have with the Talk to Buddy feature being required for this ending, it's easily neglectable. And during my initial playthrough, I saw the feature but never thought it was a major part of the game enough to lock me out of the ending. Coupled with being able to miss crucial things pertaining to your goal based on preference, and you have the most punishing thing this game can do. But that could also add to how much you'd need to care about getting the true ending. In the original, it wasn't too much work to get the ending, but in the remake, you need to put forth more effort to get what you want, which is Ebe and Gary's promise of reunion. So that's the entirety of Ebe. Unfortunately, there doesn't seem to be much else for Ebe. There's official merch that you can obtain, line stickers, and the creator is on Twitter so you can follow as you please. To my knowledge, there is no media adaptation of Ebe, so all that's to experience is the game, either the original or the remake. The original is available as a free download while the remake is able to be purchased on Steam. So yeah, sorry the ending of this wasn't as funny as the last one, but I feel like Ebe doesn't need to be funny to be enjoyable, so I encourage those that are interested to pick up and play Ebe, and let me know in the comments which ending you obtained on your first playthrough. With that being said, let's see here. The next episode is... Are you serious? What the f-